Hey guys, I'm glad to be here. So, as Emily said, yes, I was a starter fresh on the boat, and I'm kind of working with involved with that change for a while now, and I'm really proud to say that I'm now part of like the part of the advisory council. But yeah, and so one of the main reasons why I decided to work with Active Change is because their message and their like influence is something that really stands with me, and also because I remember when I was a kid how much bullying affected me and how much I really wanted to stop and wanted someone to help out, and I couldn't really get that to happen. And so I'm really, really glad that at least somebody is trying to make a change, and that I could be there to kind of help them out. And so anyway, today we are teaming up with the Apex for Youth, a New York-based nonprofit that delivers possibilities to underrepresented Asians and immigrant youth from low-income families. Through mentoring and educational programs that serve students from first to 12th grade, Apex volunteers guide and support youth to become confident, be ready for college, and give back to the community. And joining us today will be three of those students, Vicki Zheng, Limin Li, and Shi Yan Liu. Hey guys. Sorry if I butchered your names, by the way. I tried my hardest, I really did.
Hi.
Hey guys. Now I know school has been back in session for some time, and it's all on Zoom, but some of us are actually back in our classrooms, while others are learning from home, online, like a combination of both. This year has been kind of challenging, to say the least, or maybe just because of health concerns. But as Malik mentioned earlier, there are some increase in xenophobia towards Asian Americans during COVID-19, the Kung flu virus, as people say, and our country has had some issues with that, and had to reckon with the systematic racism that affects us and our fellow countrymen. That fact and much of the I can't speak today. I'm sorry. That fact and much of this happened while we were at home with our families. It was tough. But now that we're back in school, where bullying was more rampant in middle school, high school, we're facing all sorts of different adversities. I'm excited to say that with you three today to see how we're handling things. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, so I originally chose blended learning, but I switched to remote in the past week. And the only reason why I switched is because I realized it was a lot more convenient for me to stay at home instead of spending 2 hours a day to go to school and come back home. And during the time I did go to school, I felt a little nervous because I feel like during dismissal, like a lot of students are just like rushing to get out of the school and like to go home, and I felt like really nervous whenever I saw a large group of students cuddled around together. And I feel like my school has done like a pretty good job enforcing safety guidelines, and there are signs in the hallways as well as in the library to enforce social distancing, and there's also hand sanitizers and wipes if we ever need them.
Yeah, so Shi Yan and I actually go to the same school, and I chose to be remote, so I haven't been to school yet. But I noticed that there were a lot of safety guidelines that the schools imposed. And one thing, though, I wish I could see is that the school is actually making testing mandatory, because in New York City public schools, testing is not mandatory, and all they got to do is just fill out a survey listing their symptoms or whether they have any, and that be their testing, which is like very ineffective. That's one thing I wish could change. And also I feel that compared to last spring, the school system has actually gotten a lot better, because back in spring everything was so unprecedented. No one had any idea what was going on. Even learning was asynchronous, which means that teachers just give assignments and make them do the next day. Whereas compared to now, we actually have synchronous lessons, get to talk to teachers, talk to your classmates, which is a lot better. And I actually really enjoy virtual learning. It's given me the opportunity to focus a lot on other things, because it's the pandemic and quarantine has given me a lot of time to work on other stuff. So I think that's a good thing about virtual learning.
So I also chose to do 100% remote learning, and the main reason for that is because of the train ride that I would have to take to school. So it's not even because it's almost like an hour train ride to get to school, but because the train that I like usually take to school has never really been that safe, and I feel like as we are in the COVID era, like there are going to be more races on the train.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, I'm also fully online, except apparently my school isn't doing as good a job as you guys. Basically, all my classes are asynchronous, and they really don't know what they're doing yet. I mean, they're doing better than my last school, so I'm glad to be online. But I think the main reason why I'm happy to kind of be away from my class is because one thing that's been happening right now is kind of the coronavirus is being blamed on, Asia Pacific Islanders and such, and especially Chinese people. And I'm not certain how my classmates will react or how they are, but I know that some of them are kind of a little bit racist and not very educated, surprisingly. So that's the biggest fear I had going back to school, is that maybe I or others around me would be targeted because of COVID. So I think I'm supposed to ask these questions. Limin, how are you connecting with your classmates and teachers both in class and outside of school?
Yeah, so actually I've been having pretty good communication with both my friends and my teachers in school, mainly because classes are asynchronous, which means teachers also have office hours so you can go to and ask them questions. And in class, they would put us in breakout rooms so we can work on problems together with our classmates, which is really good because we haven't really had any classmate interaction last spring, which is awesome. And on top of that, my friends and I actually created an executive board for our major, so we could connect all our students together, have these Zoom study halls, pen pals, and all this stuff to kind of pull everyone together and create a support system.
Would you say it's easier now or before COVID?
I definitely think it's a lot easier before COVID because there's always this barrier of communication between you and another person virtually as opposed to being in person. So I definitely think it's a lot harder.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Shi Yan, is that right? Shi Yan?
Yeah.
What has been the biggest change for you between last spring and now?
So the biggest change for myself between last spring and now is that I feel a lot more educated on social issues that have been going on and the importance of civic engagement. So during the previous school year, Apex gave me the opportunity to become an Apex ambassador, and through that, I was able to help create our Apex for Youth conference back in May. And during this conference, we basically discussed how Asian Americans have been affected by this pandemic and how we can stand in solidarity with other people of color. And we also executed a phone banking and text banking event to remind Apex families about filling out the census and the importance of filling it out. And we're currently working on a project, a voting project, to inform how important this upcoming election is and to encourage Asian Americans to go vote.
I love that. All right, and then Vicki, we should talk about bullying. And as we mentioned earlier, COVID-19 kind of exacerbated the discrimination that Asian Americans face. And in some ways, imagine you were shielded from bullying since you weren't in school, but are things different now?
So just to preface the answer, we all attend schools that are filled with predominantly Asian American students, and that means that our experiences are going to be very different from people who are not making up the majority of their school. So personally, I have not faced any racism or bullying in school, but outside of school is another story. And as I work at my at a Chinese restaurant outside of school, there have been multiple racist phone calls, and Apex actually gave me an outlet to talk about that at an event actually that happened last Monday.
Did you say racist phone calls?
Yeah, there are people who would literally call and say oh, can I order a dog or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's disgusting. All right, Limin, over the last 7 months of the pandemic, a lot has happened to our country. I mean, as we kind of all have seen, and our world has been enabled for people to demonstrate solidarity with our communities, such as hashtag Black Lives Matter or Justice Breonna Taylor, and many other hashtags. So as young people, what are some challenges and successes over the past year that you for you in terms of getting your voice heard and creating positive social change?
Yeah, thank you, Hudson. That actually takes us right back to what Shi Yan mentioned earlier about our Apex Youth Conference. So back in, I think, May or so, we actually had this Apex talking about Black Lives Matter and how it kind of intersects with our Asian community in order for us to understand the struggles we all go through to stand in solidarity with each other. And I think that's super important. And after the George Floyd incident, I noticed that a lot of students were actually more actively engaged with social justice and creating accounts to advocate for these different social issues going on. And I think that's amazing because there's a lot more media coverage now as opposed to before. And it's really important for us to be educating our friends and family by providing these different resources. And a challenge for me personally is to actually get our parents to understand the social climate, because they tend to be slightly a little more conservative and not very understanding of things having to do with race. And that is definitely a struggle for me in order to get my voice to that, like my voice to be heard by them.
By your parents?
Yeah, by parents. And I think Shi Yan and Vicki can also agree with that.
And they both nodded and said yes, okay. And back to Vicki. So millennials went to school during a time when school shootings were far less common. But where we did not have our school year shut down due to the pandemic, is there any overall message you're saying like to hear the older people watching to hear? And what would that be?
So I've honestly been really lucky, and like older people in my life have been Apex staff and my mentor from Apex, and they've all been like extremely supportive of me. But I think like also when I hear older people, I also think about my parents and how my parents are immigrants, and I feel like something that is similar. But I'm not gonna like, this is not speaking for all immigrant families, but just for like I guess like some immigrant families is how our parents, like their first priority when coming to America was to survive, and their biggest dream for us is to have like a better future to them. So I guess my message is thank you.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the American dream for most people is no longer about, you know, becoming rich and having a better life for yourself, and more having a better life for your family and the next generation. And I really think that's awesome. So now, Shi Yan, although Fresh Off the Boat has wrapped up its final season last spring, the show was pivotal in terms of AAPI representation in the media. As AAPI youth, what other kinds of media representation do you hope to see? And what have been other shows, movies, books, etc., that have been integral to you learning more about your identities?
So in the last few years, I discovered the Crazy Rich Asians book series before the movie came out, and I actually read all 3 of the books, and I just really loved how they focused on the importance of family. And for the movie, I just found it really amazing how this was like an all Asian there was like all Asian cast in 25 years since Joy Luck Club, and I can't really think of any other movies or books right now, but I just feel like that's how underrepresented we are in the media, and I hope that we can see a lot more AAPI representation in the future. And to add on to that, I actually grew up watching YouTubers Ryan Higa and the Wong Fu Productions, and I just really love how AAPI are represented in that scene.
Oh, I love those guys. And also, what I was really impressed by, especially besides the fact that it was all Asian cast, is how well Crazy Rich Asians did in theaters. I mean, it smashed the box office, and I thought that was super, super cool. Okay, for all you guys, the 3 of you are in high school and are about to embark on the next adventure soon, you know, college. And we have a lot of people watching today. So what is one thing you'd like to say to your, 10-year-old self?
So I'm actually using a quote from one of my favorite animes called Freeze. So the quote is, when you're 10, they call you prodigy. When you're 15, they call you genius. Once you hit 20, you're just an ordinary person.
Wow. That's from anime?
Yeah, it's from.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what I would tell my 10-year-old self is that when one door closes, another will open.
All right, I like it.
So I'll probably tell my 10-year-old self that I'm not gonna grow anymore, and you'll probably stay this short.
What? You want to tell okay? Whatever you say. All right. So, lastly, do you guys have any questions you have for me? Like, are there any questions you guys have?
Yes, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
So, how did your perception of your own identity change before and after starring Fresh Off the Boat?
I think before Fresh Off the Boat, I didn't really care about my identity. I was a kid. I just want to have fun. I kind of did whatever I wanted. But as I realized, and as I kind of aged, I don't know if it was just because of the show or just because, I kind of grew up a little bit. I started to understand how important it was for me to actually understand myself, my identity, my culture, my history. And so I think it was influenced a little bit by my father and the show. But it's changed because now I really know how important it is for me to kind of become one with myself. And I learned a lot about my familial history. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, to hear that. So like you were talking about like being on set and all of that. So how is it like being an AAPI in the media industry? So how are like your interactions with other people like there?
Can you? I don't know. It's kind of hard. Can you rephrase this question a little bit? I mean, what are you trying to ask?
Okay. So were people on set like supportive of you?
Oh, okay.
Really, something along the lines of that.
Yeah, I think, I had an incredible experience on set. I think I still consider many people who worked on set with me as like my family, even just crew members, right? I recently went to the baby shower of, my wardrobe lady, because she's literally she was like my mother. I mean,
Aw.
there was not a single person on set who had ever said anything to try to hurt me or make me mad or anything. They were all super supportive, super nice. And, I consider them all to be like good friends or family in like the least.
Amazing. It's amazing to hear. Yeah,
I had the best crew and best cast, I gotta say.
that's awesome.
Anybody else? I mean,
Yeah, I can go next. So we literally saw you grow up on Fresh Off the Boat, and like now that like one journey is over, like where can we expect to see you next?
well, I'm hoping for a lot, but right now one of the main things I'm working on is like unscripted cooking shows, because cooking is incredible. It's one of my main dreams. So I've been working with Disney and a couple of people just trying to put out the shows that I've created. It's kind of difficult right now because of Corona, so I can't really have audiences or anything like that. So we're trying to rework the idea a little bit, but that's what's coming next. And besides that, I'm auditioning and preparing for whatever is put on my door next. So I don't know yet, but we'll see.
Cooking show? That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh yeah, my friends and I actually recently created a startup called Culture Kids Cuisine, and now we're having weekly workshops to teach kids from all around the world to learn how to cook. So I think
Oh, I love that.
cooking's amazing. Cooking
It
brings
really
us
is.
together.
It's what I like to say about cooking is it's the one kind of language that doesn't have a barrier. You can speak any emotion through cooking, even if you're from different parts of the world. And I love
Yeah,
that.
it's just like music. Like there's
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Depends
Or
on-
music too. You're right. I forgot about that. But actually, music does kind of have a barrier. I mean, I sometimes don't understand K-pop because I don't understand Korean, and I think you don't really have that barrier with food. I don't know. Anyways,
K-pop is nice.
it is.
I think Shi Yan can agree to that. Yeah.
Shi Yan, you have any questions?
Yeah, so so do you what are your favorite dishes to cook? Like if you were to do like the cooking, what would be like your main dishes that you want to cook?
Well, there's two things right now. I just this is never before until like today. I just got a smoker, and so it's just super fun to use, and I'm trying to do a lot more of that. But normally my favorite dish is like Asian fusion. I like to take ideas from French cuisine and just American cuisine and put it into like the dishes that my grandmother taught me. So I mean, my cooking show isn't really based around that, but if I was to make one that's what I'd be cooking. If I opened a restaurant, that's what I'd be serving. So
Let us know when you open your restaurant.
Yeah, we'll come visit.
oh, for sure. It probably a personal restaurant might open myself probably won't happen for like 20 years, but when it does, I'll let you guys know.
I'll
And
bring the kids.
on that note, thank you guys for joining me for this important chat, and I hope you guys keep up the good fight.
It was
All right?
really nice speaking to you.
Thank
Nice speaking to you guys
you.
too.